Hello and welcome to the 2021 MEF 3.0 Proof of Concept Showcase, where MEF members collaborate to demonstrate MEF 3.0 based use cases that validate, evolve, and inspire the work of MEF. I'm Kevin Vachon, your host, and today we're showcasing POC 135, the Ubiquitous Edge, with AT&T, Ericsson, and Cisco. Edge, edge, and more edge. We've been talking about the edge a great deal, especially in our Infinite Edge series, of course. But this POC looks like it's going to be an excellent opportunity to find out more about what ubiquitous security in the edge actually means and how market leaders like AT&T, Ericsson, and Cisco are enabling MEF work to achieve that. Our program today kicks off with an introduction to the POC by Will Eberall, AVP Product Management at AT&T, who leads their vertical edge organization. It'll be followed by a demonstration, a business panel, and then Q&A. And a reminder that at any time during today's event, you can queue up your questions by selecting the Q&A tab on the right. So let's get started. Will, it's great to have you here. Over to you.
Hello, I'm Will Eberall, Assistant Vice President of Product Management, leading our Virtual Edge product organization at AT&T Business. I have the privilege of introducing you to the Ubiquitous Edge Proof of Concept. 2020 will be a year we all never forget. It's transformed how we live and how we work. From an enterprise view, it's drastically accelerated the urgency around broader digital transformation and cloud-first strategies, going from centralized models to heavily distributed. The enterprise branch has now merged and morphed with our consumer space, and now our home is becoming that enterprise branch of one that businesses are having to solution and solve for. A Gartner study found that 30% of all employees that work from home will be there permanently through 2024. And in speaking with many enterprises, this could last much longer than that. This remote worker concept and explosion that's happening right now is a challenge that all businesses are having to solve for, from a connectivity, from an application performance, and a security architecture view. A lot of the traditional VPN technologies that businesses are using are running into scale and capacity issues, or they lack that application visibility or performance into that heavily distributed cloud. They're using a lot of different vendor technologies to solution and solve for that, creating operational silos and lack of visibility, control, and management across this technology continuum. This is in addition creating security risk between the seams of those technologies. Within our Ubiquitous Edge Proof of Concept, we're going to be tackling many of these challenges for you. We're going to be using AT&T SD-WAN with Cisco's end-to-end security capabilities and integrating that in with Ericsson's composite orchestration. So you've got that single pane of glass, full network, and security policy creation and management control. We'll also be using multiple scenarios from an access methodology perspective, mobile form factors, and geographic locations to give you a full view of how we can solution and solve for your unique work from anywhere challenges. In addition, we'll have both hardware and software network elements. We'll be leveraging zero trust network access, secure access service edge, and centralized control and management. So hopefully this gets you excited on the full potential of this end-to-end solution that can solve for your unique ubiquitous edge challenges. Lastly, I'd like to thank MEF for their leadership in building global standards against a lot of these emerging technologies, specifically SD-WAN. Without further ado, the Ubiquitous Edge.
Our world is changing faster than ever. More employees are working remotely, which means they're using multiple devices to access corporate data from a wide variety of locations. And more enterprises are decentralizing, using public cloud and SaaS applications. Additionally, new low-latency applications enabled by 5G, network slicing, and MEC are emerging. As a result, more of your company data traverses the public internet instead of going through a highly secure corporate infrastructure. This creates additional challenges, not the least of which are security issues. AT&T, Cisco, and Ericsson have come together to help enterprises manage business and network challenges, technology platforms, and operational issues in a virtually seamless solution that drives rapid service delivery and cost optimization through end-to-end automation, minimizes and handles security threats, enables near real-time, consistent, and dynamic policy management.
Today, we are going to explain what the Ubiquitous Edge means and show you how the AT&T, Cisco, and Ericsson solution works to help secure the Ubiquitous Edge. Technology transformation has been enabling work on the go for a few years now. A post-COVID world has redrawn the network map on enterprises with a large volume of employees working from home. Chief technology and security officers in many organizations have a greater focus on connecting and helping to secure their workforce. A large number of enterprise applications now reside in public clouds. Changing traffic flows have dissolved the enterprise-centric security perimeter, making it more complex and expensive for organizations to protect their digital assets and stay ahead of security threats. This quote from Gartner sums it up nicely. The enterprise perimeter is no longer a location. It is a set of dynamic edge capabilities delivered when needed as a service from the cloud. As network and security boundaries morph and converge into a single managed offering from the cloud, AT&T, Cisco, and Ericsson are addressing the challenges by utilizing AT&T's network infrastructure and managed services, AT&T SD-WAN with Cisco integrated security, and Ericsson's vendor-agnostic orchestrator. The solution integrates network services such as SD-WAN and network security services such as Secure Web Gateway, CASB, and Firewall as a Service, providing policy-based, software-defined, highly secure access from a customizable network fabric. Let's get to some of the features, drivers, and architecture in our solution. The secure Ubiquitous Edge from AT&T, Cisco, and Ericsson builds on the Gartner-defined SASE architecture model, where SASE is fundamentally the convergence of network as a service, along with network security as a service, with features like zero-trust network architecture, SD-WAN, a highly secure internet gateway, and firewall as a service, all delivered from the cloud to the edge device. We do that with high security on any device and from anywhere. We expand on that foundation with the Ericsson Orchestrator and AT&T Network Infrastructure and Managed Services. The solution also aligns with the MEF framework and is built on 3 foundational pillars of security, connectivity, and policy. The Composite Orchestrator is a common operations solution, enabling near real-time service creation, delivery, uniform operations, and cost efficiency across a multi-vendor, multi-platform environment. Some of the benefits of the Composite Orchestrator from Ericsson include a single pane of glass for network management, vendor-agnostic integration, multi-cloud and hybrid network deployments, and overlay and underlay management. The following set of use cases demonstrate various Ubiquitous Edge scenarios and types of end users which are highly secured by our solution. In these use cases, the workers are all part of an enterprise, which is an AT&T Managed Services customer. Our first use case involves a contractor who needs to access an enterprise application with high security from any device from anywhere in the world without having to install an agent on their device. Using Zero Trust Network architecture as the foundation, users first authenticate to the Cisco Duo Network Gateway and approve a 2-factor authentication request before they are granted access to protected services. Duo checks the user, device, and location against an application's policy before allowing access to the application, all without requiring an agent on the endpoint. In this case, the user was granted access. You have granular access control to specify various policies to make sure only trusted users and endpoints are able to access your internal services. Is it a corporate phone with MDM enrollment or grandma's iPad? If it isn't on a trusted device, that's where we can change the trust and change the policy dynamically. We make sure we know who you are and also ensure the device you're on is trusted. Here, we change the policy using the orchestrator to restrict access to corporate devices only. Zero Trust is also applied to cloud applications. Here, we are connecting to Office 365 and logging on with Duo multi-factor authentication successfully, but getting denied by the security policy because the policy mandates a corporate laptop. Our next use case encompasses DNS layer security and a highly secure web gateway delivered to your laptop to enable a mobile worker. As part of the order, we configure the desired security features using the Ericsson Composite Orchestrator. That means we can load a module for Cisco Umbrella's DNS security and secure web gateway for content filtering and anti-malware protection for the user. What does the Umbrella module do? It takes and captures DNS traffic and all web traffic, and it forwards it to Umbrella Cloud, and the device is highly protected. Sometimes the laptop that's connecting to the enterprise network remotely has never seen the light of day outside the office because it's always connected from the office. Now that many users are working from home, we need to protect that endpoint. And that is why Cisco Anti-Malware Protection is our endpoint best-of-breed technology for antivirus, anti-malware, and behavior heuristics. Here we can see that the user attempted to reach a site that had malware on it, but the security threat was detected and blocked, helping to keep the user secure. This is visible from an administrator point of view as well. We can also connect to the enterprise by connecting via VPN. Here we use the Ericsson Composite Orchestrator to instantiate a remote access VPN concentrator in the VNF fabric. This provides access to the corporate network securely, while also having cloud DNS, secure web gateway, and anti-malware protection delivered to the endpoint. When connecting to the enterprise, we will get challenged by Duo for zero trust policy enforcement. Duo provides an additional layer of security to separate internal corporate resources and make them available only to users who are specifically authorized. We just demonstrated how Zero Trust network architecture has been implemented. As the name suggests, Zero Trust means that unless specifically authorized to access specific network, applications, or data resources in an enterprise, the default is zero access even after network access has been granted. Over the last year, many traditional office-based workers were required to work at home. This scenario is tailor-made for a remote teleworker with SD-WAN. Some of these workers may need more than just endpoint security. A couple of examples include a financial broker or fund manager making financial transactions, or a doctor conducting a telehealth visit with a patient. In these cases, our solution protects their whole network and peripherals, not just their laptop. The remote teleworker has a hardware-based VPN tunnel to corporate assets and another tunnel to Cisco Umbrella to deliver the cloud security functions. We extend the corporate wireless SSID down to the power user to access the corporate network wirelessly from their home, allowing even greater flexibility and security for the remote teleworker. Using a Cisco SD-WAN device and underlays from AT&T, 5G and broadband connections, an almost always available internet with 5G speeds from AT&T is delivered to the remote teleworker. We prioritize and add security to business applications, thereby enabling a higher quality of experience for that remote teleworker. The foundation for this scenario is based on AT&T SD-WAN with Cisco integrated security and cloud architecture, and the managed service is enabled by Ericsson's Composite Orchestrator. The teleworker already has a powered-on device that hasn't been configured yet. We treat the remote teleworker as a branch office of one. Here from our Cisco SD-WAN controller, you can see we have 8 devices up and that are part of the corporate network. Ericsson's Composite Orchestrator is used to configure and instantiate the new remote teleworker service. We bring up the enterprise order, select the Cisco device, and the service template to apply. We select the SASE template, which combines security with the SD-WAN service, and then the order is submitted. Using defined APIs, the orchestrator pushes the configuration details to the device. The remote teleworker device is now configured and ready to be used. The console also shows that the device just configured is online. You may recall that the console had 8 devices before. Now it shows 9 current active devices. This user is now online. The remote teleworker is protected by Cisco Umbrella when going to a site which has malware, as shown here by the screen. We can now enable other SD-WAN features for your branches across your entire organization. Users can now enjoy the benefits of service-level agreements for application-aware routing guaranteeing application performance, cloud on-ramp providing the quickest path to your cloud applications, high branch security including intrusion prevention, L7 firewall, URL filtering, anti-malware, and more across the entire organization with a few clicks. Finally, our last use case showcases the scale and flexibility of our solution, how we deploy, operate, and manage network and security policies for all branches, mobile users, and remote teleworkers. Here we can see how this one user can access the web page, epicgames.com, and can access the BitTorrent site, as you can see here by the ping. Again, with the Ericsson Orchestrator, we can apply a security policy to block access to specific content. In this case, we want to block gaming content for all sites and users in our network. We also want to apply a global firewall rule that applies to all branch offices and our remote teleworker. This security policy will block all gaming sites and block the BitTorrent address. When this policy is applied, you can see that globally, users can no longer ping the BitTorrent site. Also, by going to epicgames.com from each of the sites, you can see that the users can no longer access the site from any location in your network, thus protecting the users and organization. In addition, each of the sites use the closest cloud-based firewall in their geographical region to gain quicker access to applications without having to backhaul firewall traffic to a central location. We can also use an inline cloud access security broker for shadow IT operations to identify applications in use, identify high-risk applications, high-risk users, and other key risk factors. All this is powered by Threat Intelligence by Cisco Talos, which detects, analyzes, and protects against both known and emerging threats. Here we see there is some Dropbox traffic on our network. We want to ensure that users from the corporate network are not able to upload to their personal Dropbox. Again, using the orchestrator and applying the policy, the user is no longer able to upload a file to Dropbox. We can enable many of these different types of security features to limit the sharing of sensitive information. There you go. AT&T, Cisco, and Ericsson help provide security for the ubiquitous edge by utilizing AT&T's network infrastructure and managed services, AT&T SD-WAN with Cisco integrated security, and Ericsson's vendor-agnostic orchestrator that provides many benefits to enterprises.
Wow, that was an amazing demo. Tremendous use cases, very comprehensive end-to-end solutions. What struck me is that there was so much packed into a very short period of time. And it's great. I'll comment on this a little bit later as we close today, but this content, this POC will be available on demand in about 24 hours. And we're going to need to go back and look at it again to redigest all of what we just saw. Great job, folks. So we're going to move on to our business panel discussion. I'm joined by Daniel Barlev, MEF's VP of Strategic Programs. He's also our longstanding MEF 3.0 Proof of Concept Program Director. Started the POC program here in 2014. He's going to host the panel, and then they're going to move on to Q&A thereafter. So Daniel, back to you.
Great. Well, thanks, Kevin. I'd like to invite the panelists to join me on screen. And while they're doing that, I'll just say we've seen a fantastic demo of Edge, of SASE, and in fact, in both senses of the word edge, this is leading edge stuff here. So it's going to be very interesting to hear what our panel has to say and how they respond to the questions. So I'd like to start with introductions, and I'll ask Will to kick off.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Will Everall, AVP of Product Management at AT&T.
Great. Thank you, Will. And Martin?
I'm Martin Schablin, heading Orchestration at Ericsson.
Tremendous. Thank you. And Matt?
Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Garr, Director of Product Management in our Cloud Security Division at Cisco.
Well, welcome. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. And I'm going to start with a question for Will. You called the MEF 3.0 POC Ubiquitous Edge, or the Ubiquitous Edge. So can you elaborate what you mean by ubiquitous? How ubiquitous? What should that mean to the audience?
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely a fun play on words. I got to give the team credit for coming up with the unique name. But when you think about the definition of ubiquitous, I think it's spot on in what we're trying to solve in this proof of concept and what businesses truly are trying to deal with in this state right now. You think about how the branch edge has transformed with consumer now in the branch of one, and it's no longer really just the home office as that branch, but it is truly work from anywhere, from any device, from a variety of different connections, whether that's broadband or wireless or Wi-Fi. So the challenges are real, and a lot of businesses are evaluating the architectures, both from a network, from a security perspective, the technologies that they're used to using. Are those the right technologies long term? So these are all elements from a security perspective, from an application performance perspective, from the reliability of these that businesses are interested in. And I think we hit it really hard in this proof of concept of the power of AT&T, Cisco, and Ericsson coming together to solve these.
So when you talk about ubiquitous, you're talking in terms of the type of the user, the device, the application that's accessing the service, and you're talking about location, right? So you see it in very, very broad terms, if I understand correctly.
Exactly.
And what's your strategy at AT&T? Because I guess you can't start with everything. So in terms of location, in terms of the type of users and devices that are accessing, or perhaps the verticals, what's the strategy at AT&T for tackling real ubiquity?
Yeah, there's a number of factors that I think align really well to our assets and where we're helping clients solve across this. One is, I would say, in the traditional connectivity, right? Our core business. Obviously, in the wide area network space, that's our core business. So, leveraging a variety of different technologies, MPLS, Ethernet, dedicated internet, shared internet, wireless technologies like wireless broadband, and now 5G. These are all different form factors of access technologies that clients can really use in unique ways to drive value into that wide area network, providing flexible architectures to adapt. Move into the consumer space. So, we're using residential broadband as a business connectivity method now. And we all know that there's challenges with that. So geographic footprint challenges, reliability challenges. So we're seeing the need to augment that with wireless broadband capabilities, or in footprints where you don't have a reliable broadband connection, using wireless as a broadband solution. And even augmenting that with wireless backup capabilities, I think, is a viable secondary path that we're solutioning as well. So I think those are, from a pure connectivity, that's where we're seeing a lot of interest in helping businesses. You go up to the next layer of the intelligence, the overlay element with SD-WAN. We're a global leader in managed SD-WAN. So, and it's not, we're helping businesses more on the wide area network side. That's the big foundation of the transformation, with the different underlay site types, technologies, helping fuel kind of broader cloud adoption, better visibility, reliability, performance of these applications. But it is broader than that too. We're seeing in this proof of concept, we demonstrated moving SD-WAN into a smaller form factor down into that work from home area as well. And there's huge value in that, driving down the cost points, the smaller form factor. So you've got complete visibility, not only in your traditional enterprise locations, but also in these work from home that are that branch of one. So I think we demonstrate that really well. It plays into kind of our core expertise and where we've been helping businesses. And then the other aspect is security. SD-WAN and security go hand in hand. It's like peanut butter and jelly. You can't have one without the other. So we are seeing, this aspect of the transformation fitting well with what we're doing with SD-WAN. We're a global leader in managed security services. So we are truly helping businesses integrate that security aspect of the transformation with this, whether it's going from prem to cloud, or in a lot of cases, it is a hybrid environment. And even securing kind of the remote workers or work from home aspects in this is also. And I think the other piece we demonstrate here in this proof of concept is what we're doing with Ericsson on the orchestration side. We've been working extensively with them on the mobile side of our business, and now from an enterprise to really integrate these technologies in that single view, single pane of glass.
Great. Well, you mentioned security and SD-WAN, so perhaps that's an opportunity to go to Matt now from Cisco and ask you, Matt, that the security solutions and the SD-WAN solutions that were highlighted in this POC, how should the enterprise see that, the enterprise customer, and especially in the context, the use case of remote workers, how important is that technology for them?
Yeah, so I think they're critically important, and I mean, just building on, I think Will put it really well in describing the breadth of different situations we're solving for now, right? So workers, even before COVID hit, workers were wanting to work from anywhere, right? Worker flexibility is important. So I want to work from home, I want to work from the office, and I want to access applications that are also everywhere. Right? The apps are no longer just in the data center; they've migrated out to public cloud as well as private cloud environments. And so, given that landscape, the breadth of technologies from both a connectivity and security standpoint are both important, as well as where we can deploy them. So when I think about connectivity, first off, from a worker standpoint, it's important that I can connect in from a coffee shop, from the trailer that I work in, as well as potentially from behind, say, a teleworker device. And then when the office reopens, going back into the office where I'm behind an SD-WAN device. So having connectivity in any of those use cases is critical, and that's where the set of SD-WAN devices is vital for the branch device, for the branch use case, where VPN client is crucial from a home use case, and then elements like secure web gateway plugin into AnyConnect is important for accessing public applications, even without being connected to a VPN and bringing in this. So the first bit is really around that flexibility, irrespective of where I'm working from. Excuse me. The second piece is the security piece. So again, we have this sort of combinatorial complexity of where are workers and where are applications. And so we need to be able to put the security engines in the right spot, because traffic isn't all traversing that central point anymore. So that's why having AMP endpoint on the laptop is important, as well as having the same sort of malware inspection in the cloud, right? It's why policy enforcement is so important. So we talked about zero trust and what we have with Duo. We need to be able to enforce that policy, again, irrespective of if I'm sitting at home or if I'm sitting in the office. And the traditional ways of doing that through, say, a central point of a firewall don't work, because traffic's not guaranteed to go through there. And so that's why, at Cisco, we're really bringing all those technologies together, number one, into our cloud security stack within Cisco umbrella, but also working in conjunction with the security capabilities and security engines that reside on SD-WAN devices or on the endpoint in the client that resides on them. And so it's a matter of getting all that to work together, setting the policy, making it consistent across the board.
So the enterprises, everybody's hearing all the time about the growth of the surface attack surface, ransomware, and all the terrible things that are going on in terms of attacks on enterprises. And obviously your security functionality is aimed at protecting the enterprises. But I guess you take away all that headache from the enterprises, but how do they know that you're keeping up with the sort of the latest and greatest in terms of threats and protection?
Yeah, I mean, a number of ways. So one key element that we rely on here at Cisco is having one of the largest teams of threat researchers that's out there. So that's the Talos organization. They are always scanning an inordinate amount of data and looking for threats, and bringing the signatures that they're discovering into the protections that we offer, right? So we're always watching, we're forward deploying into areas where there might be, threats such as the Olympics, et cetera. And so, that provides a set of sort of eyes and ears to always be looking at those threats, always updating our security engines to keep organizations and enterprises safe.
So that's always living in the background, and you've got a very large group that's taking care of that automatically.
That's right. Yeah. And that group, their mission is making the internet a safer place, and by extension, making all of Cisco customers who are using the services safer as well. Right. So they're not only blogging, they're actually automatically entering new threat signatures into the products in a way that brings the results of their research directly into keeping our customers safe.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So over to Martin now from Ericsson. You demonstrated very powerful orchestration capability, and I think what that boils down to for the enterprise is a single pane of glass, and you're making all that complexity in terms of network domains and technology domains and so on. You're making that sort of behind the curtain. They don't have to worry about that. Could you elaborate on what you're doing there and how you deal with that complexity?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, if you look at the demo which we have just seen, there are security, connectivity, and then automation, the three pillars really underpinning this end-to-end solution. And from the orchestration perspective, we are focusing very much on automation. And if you see the SASE Ubiquitous Edge, it's actually a multi-cloud distributed service running across private clouds, public clouds, edge sites, centralized sites, and as Will also said, it's connected by different technologies in the underlay and overlay, looking at some IP optical technologies, but also mobile, like 4G, 5G. And really the orchestration challenge or the automation challenge is to connect to this distributed multi-cloud environment, understand the topology, and then deploy these multi-vendor workloads based on SLAs, based on policies, based on latencies, based on security, and so on and so forth. So to really do that, we provide a single pane of glass for AT&T to manage this complexity, how to first design the service. So there's a design environment where you put it together, facilitate the testing, and then the deployment. But we also provide a single pane of glass for the enterprise administrator to be able to do what we have seen from the demo, to connect the different GUIs, to be able to update policies, maybe add new sites, and so on and so forth. And really, if you boil down all this sort of technical capability, it provides sort of two values. One is to quickly design and introduce new services for different segments, because enterprise customer segment is of course quite diverse. There are smaller, larger enterprises, some really big which require unique combination of vendors to be available. And second, to do this in a cost efficient way, in a way that AT&T can do this in a way to satisfy the enterprise customer needs, but also to do it in super efficiently. And this demo is, you could say, just the beginning. In a parallel work we have done together with AT&T and MEF, we have also seen, what comes next when you add 5G network slicing, when you add more advanced technologies, expanding basically the ubiquitous edge beyond what we have seen today. And that's where orchestration becomes even more important, to manage the complexity, to manage the automation, and deliver the end-to-end value.
Well, it was mentioned before that three pillars of SASE essentially are connectivity and security and policy. How much of the policy is handled by Ericsson, by the orchestration, and how much is handled by perhaps Cisco or other participants in this solution?
Yeah, so there are of course different policies, and as you have seen from the deployment side, there are security policies which are configured in the Cisco solution. Then there are deployment policies, SLAs related to latency, SLAs related to cost. Those are handled by orchestration. But what we secure from the orchestration perspective is to connect to these different systems and to provide a single pane of glass so that you can do all these policy configurations in different aspects from one place, instead of jumping between different environments and different systems.
But those policies that are coming from the enterprises, they're coming as a single policy that covers everything, and then that's being dealt with by the orchestration solution, whether it's handing it off to other parts of the system or whether it's being dealt by the orchestration. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
So back to you, Will. Last question from me in this panel is, what do you see the role of MEF here? Because AT&T, Ericsson, Cisco have been very, very long-standing contributors to the standards and other work in MEF. What do you see as the important things that we need to prioritize in MEF in order to make this ubiquitous edge happen more quickly and more effectively?
Yeah, I'm looking at this from the history of how we've worked with MEF throughout the years, and back to kind of the core of our business is connectivity, and we've worked historically closely on the standards to build a lot of these connectivity solutions with MEF. Certifying, testing, collaboration with our AT&T Labs organization. That is the foundation of our business. So back to this solution we put together, connectivity a critical component of that, building those against standards, testing, certifying to ensure the reliability, the performance of the underlay elements. Layer in now the emerging technologies such as SD-WAN and MEF being the first to build global standards around SD-WAN. That fits well into our history and making sure that we're certifying against these emerging technologies too. So, when you interoperate between the underlay and the overlay, that the performance, the technologies work. We're building APIs to be able to feed into, Ericsson's orchestration. These are all really important elements to interoperate these different emerging technologies. And now where we're going with SASE, and we know MEF is, in the stages of looking at standards against SASE, which is extremely important because this is really the future. How clients are solving for this right now with different vendor technologies, add a lot of complexity, add a lot of interoperability issues. And that's where I think MEF, leading the way to build standards, define truly what is SASE. So we're all building solutions that map to that definition. And we can integrate our technologies in a more meaningful way on how our clients want to consume it. Martin mentioned how it drives down the cost models. That not only helps the technology partners collaborating to build these, but it also helps the consumers that want to consume them in meaningful ways too. So, I think MEF is definitely pushing the boundaries. You've proven that not only from the connectivity with SD-WAN, but I think the future with SASE and these other more emerging technologies is very exciting to us and to our business clients.
Tremendous. Okay, thank you, Will. So I don't want to hog all the time. We've got questions coming in from our audience now. So at this juncture, what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite our additional team members to come on the screen and join us so that they can also assist in answering the questions. So while they're doing that, I'm going to read the first question. Would either Matt or Dave answer perhaps what edge CPE does the remote teleworker need to deploy at their home, and how is it managed and configured to comply with corporate policy? I guess, with those millions of remote workers, including me, it's something that we're always wondering, how much of that intelligence, how much hardware actually needs to be in our location? Is there truck roll, or is it, can it all be done remotely? So perhaps I'm sure the audience would be keen to understand that better. Who would like to answer that question?
I got that, Matt. So, the beauty of the solution, it's ubiquitous, right? So we can achieve this by either software on your laptop or your iPad or whatever mobile device you have, or you can do this with a hardware-based device. Specifically in the demo, we demoed a Cisco 1121X, right? So depending on your needs, depending on what you need to do, will require, whether you need that hardware device or maybe that software device. So we think of someone like, a doctor doing like a telehealth visit, right? Maybe that doctor has a bunch of other devices in their home or in their office, maybe like telemetric devices or other things that they want to secure, right? So the device, the remote teleworker that has a hardware device, not only protects the user, but their entire network, right? As opposed to the software device, it's just going to protect their device, right? So, and with regards to the complying with corporate policies, right? All the policies are defined in not only in our security stack with Cisco Umbrella, and not only with Cisco SD-WAN, but also with the Ericsson Orchestrator, making sure that those policies are deployed properly.
So a lot of flexibility, depends on the needs, depends on the actor, the subject actor, as we call them in Zero Trust and our SASE work. But you can manage that endpoint accordingly. Great, thank you very much indeed for that, David. A question for Blanca, for Martin. Does the Ericsson's Orchestrator support network slicing across wireline and wireless core networks?
Martin, I know.
Yeah.
I'll start with that. Yes, and actually, if you saw, and that's one of the advantages of the orchestrator, right? Here you saw it in a SD-WAN SASE kind of application, but obviously, especially with our background, we are orchestrating solutions for telco nodes. Very much involved now with the 5G core, of course, virtualization, 4G core, transport networks, underlays, the fixed line, optical, working with the different controllers, as well as, of course, with the emerging edge, looking at 5G, fixed wireless access. So, truly you could see, you could use the same orchestrator to orchestrate the underlay. There was a POC, I think 133, where we showed, right, how we orchestrate a specific slice that's based on the SLAs required for that slice. That application was, let's say, an ultra low latency application. And then on top of it, we'd orchestrate also what's required for the optimization, the SD-WAN, and you could layer the applications yet on top of it. So, as Martin mentioned, the SD-WAN SASE is just a start, what's being done on the edges, right? And then the next technologies are to follow, whether those would be, remote cameras, telemedicine, you name it. But this one, what we showed, is very much here now.
Great, thank you. So another question, and I think this is very, very central. How are customers solving this problem today? I mean, to me, when I look at this POC, it's so well presented. It looks like an enterprise IT manager's dream. But how are they dealing with this today? And what does AT&T do, currently, to help enterprises and help them transition into this more SASE approach? Will, perhaps you could answer that.
Sure. Yeah, I'll start it, and Ramesh, you can jump in if there's anything I miss. As I mentioned, this is we play really well across these different technologies currently. With managed SD-WAN capabilities, with managed security capabilities, and obviously the variety of different underlay technologies for businesses. And the reality is the architectures. A lot of clients are evaluating their current architectures and the technologies they're using. A lot of it is evaluating. Do I take all of my VPN traffic and do I centralize it into a head-end data center through an IPsec, head-end server? That architecture has been around for a long time, but is it the most efficient if, now most of my users are no longer in this branch, they're working from home using broadband connections, and the clouds are heavily distributed, or the applications are heavily distributed. So is it more efficient versus hairpinning everything through the data center and then out? So I think the businesses are truly looking at a variety of different ways to potentially change this, and I think it fits really well into what we've demonstrated here. I would just say that in this current environment, in most cases, it is a variety of different technologies out there. So the SD-WAN technology may be a certain vendor element. The security elements, they've got some legacy security services that they're connecting into. They're moving to different aspects of cloud. It's not a rip and replace and get to this end state. It's kind of a crawl, walk, run type of situation that businesses are solving for. It is a long journey to get to this end state because of the investment in certain environments that they're having to solution around. So from an AT&T side, I think we're helping in the sense where we manage these environments. We're building them against standards. We're testing, certifying the interoperability between these different vendor technologies that simplifies it. But at the end of the day, in a lot of cases, we're not managing all these endpoints. We're not managing all these technologies. So we do see clients struggling with the full integration. Maybe the SD-WAN is having challenges, working with different cloud security services. And then there's some challenges with businesses trying to solution around that. So there are real viable complexities out there that businesses are having to work through, at least from an AT&T view.
Yeah, absolutely. And Daniel, just to add to what Will stated, one of the other things to his point is, as we move away from the traditional networking model into local internet breakouts and stuff like that, right? There's a lot of cloud adoption and SaaS-based applications that corporates are going into these days. And we all know in a post-COVID world, right? The technology landscape has shifted to such an extent that the very fact that we have ubiquitous edges makes it a ubiquitous threat, and we need to secure each one of these edges, no matter how they come in. And what kind of applications they access. That was what our entire demo is about. Matter of fact, we are already engaging with some customers, in our proof of concept product showcase, right? Where we are not just demonstrating, they are interested in the solution that we have live today, and we are trying to solve for it, for the real world, security threats and, networking challenges. We are doing it in our proof of concept showcase.
So Ramesh, perhaps I'm just looking back to what happened with SD-WAN, 4 or 5 years ago. It started with early adopters essentially doing do-it-yourself SD-WAN, for want of a better word. And then that sort of transitioned to managed SD-WAN services, where service providers were coming in and offering fully or partially managed SD-WAN services. Do you see that happening as well here with SASE managed services? Do you see that same trend where your enterprise customers are sort of starting with either a legacy or some sort of SASE offering and then saying, well, actually, we want a fully managed service?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this is probably more, Will can probably do a better job than me, but I'll just, hit on the first 10 seconds or something. I think, we are exactly at that crossroads right now, where, what happened to managed SD-WAN years ago, we are in the same spot with security services. Over to you, Will.
I would definitely say it's an area that I think there is going to be, it's back to the crawl, walk, run philosophy, that businesses are going to have existing environments that they're having to solution and manage across. So, as they move to this full SASE framework, there's going to be that integration piece. So I think having, a provider that can help them with the managed elements, kind of end to end, or at least majority of them, adds a lot of value, and it takes away the complexity and the concerns of that interoperability elements. Like I said, we do extensive testing, not only on the SD-WAN, but all these different security elements. And we can manage that, through some single panes of glass and that integration through orchestration as well to drive down that complexity.
Great, thank you, Will. So perhaps another question that came in, and perhaps this is for Matt. Where do companies start from a SASE perspective? What does that look like, and how do you see this migration taking place? So I'm guessing that a lot of enterprises are hearing the term SASE, and as Will and Ramesh sort of alluded, they're not starting from zero, but how is it presented to them, how they get to a SASE solution? How do you tackle that?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I mean, frankly, there's not a one size fits all. The way I look at SASE is there are many roads, there are many paths into SASE, right? Because it is an architecture that brings so many different connectivity as well as so many different security elements together. You know, that said, there are sort of some more well-worn paths than others. So, you know, I'll give maybe a few examples of how we see customers are building out their adoption of SASE. Right? It can start from SD-WAN, where a customer has begun an SD-WAN migration. They want to now turn on cloud security, right? And so they break out that public traffic to a cloud security service like Cisco Umbrella, as was shown in the use cases earlier. Right, so that's an area where we can now augment what they had with SD-WAN and the direct internet access, but now we bring one additional element layer of security into the mix. You know, another one is with remote workers as well. Right, they are turning on either the cloud security from that remote worker device. They're turning on additional controls from a policy perspective of who can access what. That sort of zero trust piece. And so, there's another area of sort of building up the capability from a SASE perspective. We also see the inverse, right? We see customers who are using some of our cloud security services, like they may be DNS security users, they may be secure internet gateway users using our secure web gateway, and now they're saying, I actually want to, I now need to enable my secure remote workers. Right, and I need to bring consistent policy across my branches, and that's a great use case where they can say, look, I've got this heterogeneous set of remote workers and different types of branch hardware. Let me now try to rationalize that in a way where I've got that consistent, cloud security stack, where I've got interconnect via a single cloud edge, and that's really where a concept like a ubiquitous edge comes into play, because it does give that more single point of integration or connection where we can bring the security services to bear, we can bring the automation and orchestration layer to bear to try to bring some sort of standardization to what's otherwise sort of madness of complexity. So, again, it's a journey, and adopting SASE isn't turning on a light switch. It really is adopting more and more of these services as one goes, and as the organization is ready to turn them on.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way of putting it. It's a journey. It's not sort of just going out and buying a SASE solution. It really depends, as you say, on what's starting point and gradually transforming the business and securing it more and more and improving the performance. So, yeah, that's a very clear way of putting it. Thank you. Another question here is, what is the value of having a vendor agnostic orchestrator? So that's definitely for the Ericsson team. I would have thought that's pretty obvious, but perhaps I'm missing something. So perhaps Blanca or Martin, you'd like to explain that for me?
No, absolutely. Maybe I can give it a try, and then Blanca, you can jump in. Yeah, so really, if you look at this particular service, I mean, the challenge is that you connect to different cloud environments. So there is already a wide variety of public cloud and private cloud technologies. But then on top of that, as Will also said, it's not really one service. It's multiple offerings, multiple services, and they are often put together from different multi-vendor components. So of course, orchestration needs to be able to manage an open multi-vendor environment in both sort of endpoint and in the dimension on the environment itself. So we work, of course, continuously with this aspect, and also adding and monitoring standards. So what what you, Will, said, and Daniel, standards are key to simplify at the end how we work in this fast-pacing environment. And MEF is one of the key players, but of course, we from the multi-vendor technology aspect look at 3GPP for 5G network slicing, TM Forum for connecting to the other environments like charging system and so on, to be able to provide a true open multi-vendor orchestration solution.
Great, thank you. So I've got the last question, and it's actually for MEF. What are your thoughts on accelerating the framework for SD-WAN and SASE that can lead to widespread adoption? So that's a very fundamental question, because it was mentioned earlier by Will and others, standardization and MEF work, sort of two major areas, interoperability and let's call it standardization of terminology. And I personally think that the work that we're doing right now with MEF W117, which is the definition of a SASE managed service, MEF W118 with the Zero Trust, MEF W88 with security, application security for SD-WAN flows, the underlying MEF 70.1 for SD-WAN. All of that work is really going to help a great deal in reducing confusion in the market, so that members and other players in the industry, like AT&T and Ericsson and Cisco, can communicate with each other and with the enterprise customer much more effectively, and they can focus on the bread and butter of the business, which is implementing great solutions without the confusion of what people are talking about and sort of fragmentation there in terms of understanding and terminology. I think that's one very important aspect of what MEF is doing with that work. But I also think it's about clarifying in a way that will make ordering services, managed services, much more automated, and expressing the needs for certain policies. So what we call East-West, and the ability to basically streamline the interaction with AT&T as a managed service provider, saying this is what we need, and for AT&T to express needs very quickly in terms of pre-order and order and billing and so on to its partners in order to complete the whole package in real time for very agile, effective services. So I think that's our main focus at MEF at the moment. And we've run out of time, so I'm going to thank the panel, not only for creating an excellent POC, but also for all your hard work in driving this work in MEF. So thank you. I'll let you leave the screen. And as I hand back to Kevin, I'm going to say, Kevin, I think this is really a clear example of how far we've come in the last year. We really only started on SASE work back in April of last year, and we're already at these sorts of demonstrations that are helping us with our standards work, but also showing that the industry is moving very fast and our members are leading it. So I think it's been a very effective POC.
Yeah, well said, Daniel. And I'm glad we had that MEF question at the end there. One thing I need to say, Daniel, is I never cease to be amazed at how you remember the numbers of all these MEF standards, the ones you mentioned after, the ones you mentioned and all the other ones. I've given up, but I just go to you now. But a great job on that. But great points. Look, it was an excellent demonstration today, and I thought both the business panel and the Q&A were super informative. And as I listened to this, and as I watched today's POC, I watched all the other POCs thus far. There's some common themes that are across all these POCs that were certainly, I think, amplified and accentuated today. We've got use cases that are both practical today, but very forward-looking as well. So the job hasn't is really only getting started in some of these areas. The solutions are very complex, multi-vendor solutions involving, obviously different types of cloud services delivered at the edge and otherwise. The importance of the underlay, the overlay, connectivity services, the interaction between them, as well as the applications. Of course, we see that coming out, across the board. Of course, everything has to be secured end to end. And then, as I think Martin pointed out, it's the importance of very comprehensive end-to-end orchestration. And but I think in the panel discussion, Martin again said, look, all of this stuff has to deliver business value, and it has to be delivered in a cost-effective way, and so we can't lose sight of that, right? So that really kind of brought this thing together, and it's very encouraging to see the role that MEF is playing, of course, driven by our members, our volunteer members, and I think Will did a great job, and others, bringing the evolution of MEF's work, towards the future, the underlay services, the overlay services, our forward-looking areas, of our work, in the SASE area in particular. So great end-to-end proof of concept today. And I'd like to thank all of you that participated, whether the MEF team for the MEF production team, and of course you for attending. Now, I want to close out with a few items. We have the MEF 3.0 Proof of Concept Awards coming up. Each POC is eligible, and there are 4 categories covering innovation, business impact, market game changer, and judge's choice. Then we have a panel of 8 independent analysts that are watching these POCs and doing the judging. We'll be announcing the winners at episode 3 of the MEF Infinite Edge series on March 10th. So don't miss it, please. Now, if you want to carry on the conversation today, feel free to reach out to one of the contacts provided on the screen that you should be seeing now from the participating companies. Now, further details of today's POC is on our MEF website. You can go to mef.net/POC135, or you can just Google MEF POC 135. There's all sorts of information there, including an overview, network diagram, other materials, and so on. And the on-demand version of this POC will be available shortly on that site. So if you like what you saw today, please send your colleagues there and have them have a look. With that, I'd like to wrap up and thank everybody today for participating.